Well, they did it! But at what cost? Okay, here we go. What's cracking, everybody, and welcome back to Kraken R&R, where the Seattle Kraken set the new franchise record with their 9th straight win, 7-4 over the Columbus Blue Jackets. Although they did not come out of it completely unscathed. And who knows, maybe some of that bad luck in the health category for the team in this game was due to the fact that it was also their 13th game in a row with points, as they have now, in these last 13 games, gotten more points in the standings than they had in the entire season leading up to this last stretch. And actually, with that being said, we are going to jump right into the game here in this one, since for one thing, I did already stream this game, and on top of that, my voice has not been doing great here over the last couple of days, a bit of a scratchy throat, so between already having streamed the game and now recording, yeah, I'm basically running off of cough drops and tea at this point, so just hoping we can make it to the end of it, especially with 11 goals and a couple of very nice Decord saves along the way. And on top of that, there were no changes in the Kraken lineup from the last couple of games, although with how this game went, that probably will not be the case come 10 o'clock on Monday morning when they play in Pittsburgh. But at least for this game, it was the same guys out on the ice. Once again, Riker Evans a healthy scratch, but with a back-to-back, and again, the way this game went, I'm imagining he's probably going to get some ice time. I kind of expected him to get it in this game against a team the Kraken really should be able to handle, which on the one hand is frustrating because I know at least I, and a lot of you based on the comments, would love to see Riker Evans playing in some of these games. But on the other hand, it's hard to blame them when they have been winning game after 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 game with this lineup. So yeah, I mean, it's going well. You might as well stick with it. Although with the back-to-back, yeah, again, Riker Evans probably will be seeing some time here in the near future. And especially considering for the third game in a row, as we do get into the game, it did not get off to a great start for the Kraken. In fact, a team that has had a rough first 10 minutes of really their last 2 games, this was easily the worst start they've had since certainly this point streak started. I mean, by all accounts, it was the Columbus Blue Jackets, the struggling last in their division Columbus Blue Jackets, that the Kraken were facing here coming in on an 8-game heater, but it might as well have been the Eastern Conference All-Star team based on how it looked through these first few minutes, as the Blue Jackets spent almost the entirety of it in the offensive end, getting a number of shots on goal and some pretty dangerous ones among them. And eventually, well, actually, I say they got shots on goal. They actually weren't getting shots on goal. They were just getting shots all around the goal. They had plenty of great opportunities to score here, but had a number of them just go wide of the net one way or the other, a couple of them blocked by the Kraken. Eventually, however, less than still 2 minutes in, with all of the shots that had been going around Decord, the first one that does end up actually on the net ends up in it. And it's really one that Decord had no chance on. It's off of a 1 face-off in the offensive end for the Blue Jackets. The face-off's one up to the blue line, where Provorov just kind of traverses the blue line, eventually finding a screen of a number of players between he and Decord. Decord doesn't see the shot coming, and the puck does go right along a line of players and into the top corner of the net. Decord's just kind of putting himself in the way of where he thinks a shot might come from and hoping for the best at this point. Unfortunately, it doesn't work, and the Blue Jackets do end up on the board with that first shot on goal. Which obviously doesn't look great for Decord's stats, but at the same time, like I said, the Kraken had basically been asking for this to happen from a defensive perspective, and just a skating perspective in general, since the puck dropped at the start of the game. And to be perfectly honest, things do not get a lot better until the midway point, even past the midway point of this first period. Really, the only thing that goes well for the Kraken through the first 11 minutes of this game is that they only allowed the 1 goal, and did manage to kill off the first Blue Jackets power play, which really was the least dangerous 2 minutes among those first 11 that the Blue Jackets had out on the ice. And so I suppose then, with things going the way they were for the Kraken through the first 10-11 minutes of this game, it should come as no surprise that when the Kraken do tie things up just past the 11-minute mark, the play starts in their end of the ice and pretty deep in it, as Adam Larsson along the boards, just as he's about to be challenged by a Columbus Blue Jacket, is able to get the puck on his stick and just rainbow a pass all the way through the neutral. And when I say through the neutral zone, I mean over the neutral zone, dropping it right into the glove of Eberle on the far blue line like he's a Hall of Fame quarterback in the NFL, although instead of throwing a football with his hand, he's hucking a piece of frozen rubber with a stick while skating around on knife shoes. Either way, it's an absolutely perfect rainbow deep pass to Eberle on the blue line that he's able to catch in his glove, drop to the ice, let settle for him, skate in and fire off a shot on the rush that goes right past the blocker into the far side of the net past Tarasov to even things at 1. So the Kraken, in spite of everything that's happened through the first half of this first period, somehow have the game tied at 1. For Eberle, it's his 5th of the season, while both Tatar and Larson pick up their 11th assists of the season. Larson, though, proving that not all assists are created equal with that absolute beauty of a pass. It's not quite sauce when you throw it like 20 feet over the ice, but it works all the same. Eberle skates in and buries it to tie the game. However, that tied game does not last more than 30 seconds, as right off the faceoff, the Blue Jackets are right back into the Kraken end of the ice once again. And once again, it's Provorov with the puck up by the blue line, firing off a shot that this time is going to go well wide of the net, but it glances off of Wemberg on its way and then takes a good chunk out of the shin of Dumoulin and into the top corner of the net past Decord, who, has no reason to expect that the puck is going to bounce off of 2 of his players and then go past him into the top corner, like it was sniped into the top corner by Rocket Richard himself. Although I don't know how many top corner shots he had, but either way, you get the point. And I got to admit that when this goal went in, there was at least a part of me that kind of started to think this might be the end of the winning streak, not because I didn't think the Kraken could come back and beat a Blue Jackets team that, again, has been struggling mightily, but more because this was the first truly horrendously bad luck bounce that the Kraken have had since that losing streak, and it also came less than 30 seconds after they tied up the game, even in spite of battling back from that terrible start to the game. So yeah, again, especially after they managed to weather the storm that honestly they helped create through those first 10-11 minutes, then to tie the game, but less than 30 seconds later, one of the worst bounces of the season, and that's saying something, ends up giving Columbus right back the lead. That was the kind of thing that seems like it could be the straw that breaks the camel's back, and this is just one of those games that, well, eventually the winning streak does probably have to come to an end. Fortunately, it wasn't tonight, and honestly, maybe a big part of the reason that this goal and this game weren't turning points for the Kraken, or at least the end of the winning streak, is that when this goal goes in for the Blue Jackets, which really, by all accounts, should be a momentum builder for them, it turns out to be one for the Kraken as they finally start to respond and turn things back the other way, tilting the ice towards the Blue Jackets net, and eventually, after some sustained offensive zone pressure really for the first time this game, they're able to even things right back up as Bjorkstrand fights the puck away from a couple of Blue Jackets players as the Kraken keep the offensive end and then gets a pass right across the slot to McCann on the far side. McCann fires off the one-timer and doesn't get it as high as I made the screenshot look at here. It actually goes kind of right along the ice, but it still gives no chance for Tarasov in net and finds the back of it just inside the post to tie things at 2. Which is where we would get to the first intermission. So after the Kraken really looked like they were getting their show run by the Blue Jackets for the majority of that period, by the end of it, with a little help of momentum, it was pretty evened up when it came to shots on goal. Actually, the Kraken had the lead on shots on goal, and somehow the game is tied. And again, that kind of has been the story for the Kraken here over these last few games. Have a tough first 10 minutes where they look flat-footed, don't get off to a great start, allow the opposing team to get some pressure, maybe even the lead, but then respond with a good back half of the first, get some momentum, tie things up, maybe even take a lead back, and carry that momentum into the first break. Which, once again, they're able to carry into the second period, where usually in these last few games is when they've taken the lead and not given it up. But in this case, just a few minutes in, while they are getting a ton of offensive zone pressure, even in spite of everything they were doing well, and they were doing a lot well in these first 2 minutes, it kind of looked like the first 2 minutes of the first period just flipped and, towards the same end of the ice, but in the Kraken favor this time. However, the Kraken are not able to score, and in fact, it's 2 back-to-back mistakes right in succession that gives the Blue Jackets a 5-on-3 power play for a full 2 minutes. As first, it's too many men on the ice, but while the Kraken put too many men on the ice, it's off of a bad change, which allows what could have been a breakaway for Johnny Gaudreau if it wasn't for Borgen holding him, preventing that from being a scoring chance. So Borgen goes to the box for the hold, an obvious good call there, and the Kraken send another guy to the box because of the too many men on the ice, so the Blue Jackets get 2 full minutes of 5-on-3, which they don't need all of to eventually score. And I mean, it's 5-on-3. Eventually, a goal was going to happen. As this one does happen, it's a pass from the high slot off to the side for a one-timer that gets through Decord, and it might have gotten a piece of Larson's stick as it gets through the 5-hole of Decord. And I do think that Joey was a bit slow to react to the pass to get over for that one-time shot. Either way, he makes a number of saves in this game and already had to this point in the first period that I think you can excuse this one that he maybe should have had. Though, again, even with that being said, it is a 5-on-3 for 2 minutes, so you kind of go into that expecting that they are going to score at some point, and you're just shocked and amazed if they are able to kill it off. But again, obviously they don't, and the Blue Jackets take that 3-2 lead. The Kraken do at least kill the remainder of the other power play and get back to 5-on-5, just down 1. Now, once again, and as a testament to the resiliency of this team, especially considering they are already down 1-4 at this point, as Burakovsky left somewhere early before the Kraken turned things around in the first period. It was a lower body injury. He left the bench halfway through the first and never returned, so we don't know much more on that. We'll probably find out sometime today here on Sunday. But the Kraken, down a forward and now down a goal, still managed to get momentum back as they come out of that second power play for the Blue Jackets and quickly end up with a power play of their own, which they don't score on. They do get a few chances, but aren't able to score. However, they keep the offensive end as that power play comes to an end, and another shot on goal leads to a freeze and a face-off in Columbus's end. And it's off of that face-off, won by Gord out to the side to Cartier, who then throws it up to Vince Dunn. Vince Dunn walks the blue line as Cartier gets himself out in front of the net. Dunn fires off the shot, and Cartier throws his stick back behind him from where he came, just gets the end of the blade on it, and tips it right past Tarasov and into the back of the net. Actually, Tarasov gets a piece of it as Cartier's tip has it go right across Tarasov as he's coming the other way into the far side of the net as he kind of drags the puck with him with that shot and tip. Cartier with the goal, and we are right back tied at 3. And I even said as much in the stream at the time, but I don't know how many times already this season, halfway through, that we've seen the Kraken win a faceoff in the offensive end out to Vince Dunn in particular. He just kind of walks the blue line for a second, then fires off a shot, and it ends up in the back of the net. A lot of them his goals, but also a fair amount of them tips by Wemberg. I think we've seen Schwartz tip a couple in, and now Cartier. But it seems to be a play that the Kraken have found ways to work. Obviously, a fantastic play by Cartier here, not only to help win the faceoff and get it back to Dunn in the first place, but then after getting it to Dunn, getting himself across from up along the boards where he was on the far side of the faceoff circle when he got that pass up to Dunn, quickly gets out in front of the net, and then is still able to make that hand-eye coordination play to get his stick back out the other way from where he came to get this tip on the puck right perfectly into the far side. So Cartier picks up his 8th goal of the season, Dunn his 27th assist, and Gord his 10th, as the Kraken for the 3rd time this game have evened things up. And then a couple minutes later, for the 4th time this game, nearly give up the lead. But Decord comes up with his best save of the game to this point. He still had one more spectacular one in him later, but certainly his best save to this point halfway through the game. As Dumoulin tries to clear a puck out of the Kraken end of the ice, but ends up turning it over at the blue line. The zone is kept, the shot goes on net. Decord makes the save, but the rebound goes to a wide open Gaudreau right in front of the net. Gaudreau then just has an easy job to do, wrapping it around Decord, who's already made the one save, and into the side of the net. But Decord sprawls out and gets his arm down on the side of the crease, right up to the goalpost, keeping that puck out of the net and coming up with a huge save on Gaudreau here to keep the Blue Jackets from taking the 4-3 lead, just like they had taken the lead 1-0, 2-1, and then 3-2. But then, right back the other way, following this great save from Decord, it's Beniers with the puck just inside the blue line in Columbus's end of the ice. And honestly, after having watched the replay a couple of times, I don't think it was an intentionally dirty hit by Sillinger. It certainly was late, and that's why he draws the boarding call here. But Beniers kind of leans down as he's flinging the puck down into the offensive end, and then the late hit happens, so it's absolutely an illegal hit. I just don't think the end result is what was intended here, unlike, I mean, what happened with the Myers hit last season, where there's just absolutely no excuse for that hit. Beniers is nowhere near the puck and hadn't been to that point. This hit, Beniers does just get rid of the puck, and while it's still a late hit, he is kind of leaned over, takes the hit, and goes into the boards right in front of the Kraken bench where there's no glass, so the side of Beniers' head hits the top of those boards right in front of the bench. So at that point, it's just hard plastic and metal that the side of his head goes right into off of the hit. Fortunately, he does bounce right up, and even more fortunately, unlike what we've seen from the Kraken in bad hits past, McCann earlier on this season. Sorry, my throat's trying to give out on me a little bit here, so I had to get a cough drop in, and we'll try to get through the rest of this pretty quickly here, but With this hit on Beniers, again, unlike what we've seen from the Kraken in instances like this past, bad hits against Kraken players, the Mangiapane hit on McCann earlier on this season, the Makar hit on McCann in the playoffs, the Myers hit against Beniers. Why is it always those two? Anyway, unlike what we've seen from those hits and a lot others like them in the years past, finally we see a Kraken player step right up to the bell and go right after Sillinger. It's Vince Dunn who doesn't even break stride. He goes right at Sillinger, and officially in the scoring book, it's a fight between Dunn and Sillinger, but this is a fight in the same way that a 7-0 hockey game is a fight. Vince Dunn absolutely beats Sillinger to a pulp, honestly holding him up from the ice as he just beats into him, eventually throwing him down to the ice and getting a couple more good licks in, and Dunn wasn't pulling any of these punches either. Unlike some hockey fights, like honestly the one Eberle had against the Avalanche in the first game this season to answer for the Cogliano hit in the playoffs last year, that one was two guys that do a fight because they know it's what you have to do for the culture of the game and all of that. Two willing combatants, but they're punching each other, but it's definitely not anything that looks like there's too much behind it. With this, there was some true hate behind these punches that Dunn was throwing. And as for what kind of tone that sets for the team who just watched the hit happen to Beniers right in front of them and now sees this fight happen, or beating happen, right in front of them as well, I think the look on Beniers' face says just about all of it. He was clearly enjoying watching the fight. Either that or it was a grimace on his face that was mistaken for a grin at watching Dunn beat the crap out of Sillinger. Either way, I think Beniers was happy to see it, whether or not it was a grimace or a smile. But for the team, especially on an 8-game winning streak, to see their leading scorer in Vince Dunn go after a guy like that, after a hit like that, I think this is exactly what we were hoping to see from this team throughout the season up to this point. But as we know, earlier on in the season, and I went on a whole rant about this in that loss to Calgary, where McCann took that cross-check to the back while he was laying on the ice, they just kind of were getting run over and not doing anything about it, and then not playing well. But now they are playing well and making guys pay for bad hits like this one. And look, I'm not a huge fan of fighting in hockey for the most part. I certainly don't like that it seems like every big hit warrants a fight all of a sudden, especially clean hits. Look, if a guy takes a big clean hit, I don't think you need to go fighting about it, but for a hit like this that was clearly late and low into the boards where there's no glass, yeah, especially against a player like Beniers, that's a fight you need to take and send that message that you're just not going to be okay with guys teeing off on especially your young center. So yeah, again, I think we can all agree that it's nice to see the team not only playing well, but also defending each other when they need to. Both things that were not happening until this winning streak started, or point streak, I should say. Now, unfortunately, while Beniers did stay in the game for the rest of the second period, he did not return to the ice for the entire third, and while they didn't say anything about what that injury was, based on the hit he took and how he ended up going into the boards, I would not be surprised if it's once again concussion protocol for Beniers. I was kind of surprised that they didn't pull him into the locker room to check him right then and there, but I guess they probably did it in intermission and decided that he wasn't going to be able to return. And now with a back-to-back coming up on Monday and Tuesday, we'll have to see what that means for Burakovsky and Beniers going into these next couple of games, and the remainder of the road trip for that matter. Getting back to the game though, the Kraken do end up on a power play out of all of this. Sillinger with the boarding added to the traded fightings between he and Dunn, and yeah, from a strategic standpoint, it's not ideal that your guy that is willing to go take fights like this is your leading scorer and power play one quarterback, but it doesn't really seem to matter as the Kraken win the faceoff to start this power play, and then do not let the puck cross the blue line, keeping it in the offensive end through the entire thing, and then with less than 30 seconds left, after McCann had been fed over and over for a couple of shots, actually a number of shots, a couple of attempted passes through the crease, eventually it's Bjorkstrand who had a couple shots of his own, one that actually beat Tarasov but went off the post behind him. Eventually, it's Bjorkstrand off of a one-timer from McCann that finds the back of the net and scores on his old team from a couple seasons ago to give the Kraken the power play goal and the 4-3 lead. A 4-3 lead that they would also carry through the rest of the second period, even though Columbus did start to push back and gain some momentum going into the second intermission. But we go to the third with the Kraken having a lead, and as we know, they pretty much actually have always come away with points so far this season in games where they go into the third with that lead. Still, it's a 1-goal lead, and they have had a couple of bad bounces go against them, so you're not necessarily feeling wholly confident that they're going to come away with a win, but we definitely started to feel a lot more confident that the Kraken were going to get the win when a few minutes into the third, it's Jaden Schwartz who gets the puck along the boards in the neutral zone, and then right as he's about to take a hit into the back into the boards, he gets a pass between his legs out behind him into the middle of the neutral zone where Jared McCann just picks it up in stride into the offensive end and on the rush fires off a shot between two Blue Jackets and into the back of the net past Tarasov to give the Kraken the 5-3 lead. And this is one, I mean, there's a bit of a screen, but this is honestly one that I think if you're the Blue Jackets, you'd like to see a save on. Either way for the Kraken, they'll happily take it. McCann's second of the game as he was on a bit of a goal drought there, but yeah, when he starts scoring, he scores in bunches, so hopefully that's a trend that continues here over the next few games and maybe extended winning streak. But the Kraken now with a multi-goal lead, and I mean, yeah, 3 goals is more than Decord's given up in a long time, but you can't imagine he's going to give up too many more, so they're probably getting a win at this point. But just in case you still weren't feeling entirely confident that 5-3 would be enough, just over a minute later, it's Brian Dumoulin on the rush into the offensive end. He just skates up to the faceoff dot, fires off a shot of his own through a screen of a defensive player, and into the back of the net. Another one that, again, you'd probably like a save on if you're Columbus, but it's now 6-3 Kraken, 2 goals in just over a minute. And from there, yeah, Decord's not letting up 3 more goals. The Blue Jackets do end up getting 1 more back late in the period, which comes right after. I mean, if that Scorpion save from Decord in the last game was his save of the year, this is easily number 2, and honestly, I think it's right up there with that Scorpion save for his best and the Kraken best of the season. As late in the period, the Blue Jackets, desperate to try to get something going down 3, are really trying everything they can to get pucks to the net. Eventually, the puck does make its way to the net. It's right out in front. A Blue Jackets player has it right at the top of the crease in front of Decord, but passes it to the side where, of course, it's Sillinger with the puck. All he has to do is make sure to lift it so it gets over Decord's leg as he gets that to the post. But that doesn't matter as Decord dives back, gets his glove, and I think ultimately the inside of his elbow in front of this puck. And genuinely, I've watched this in slow motion and I still don't know how Decord makes this save. Yeah, the Scorpion save is a little bit more spectacular in that he's laying on, makes a save with his leg, but this save might even be better than that one. It was absolutely incredible. It just doesn't have quite the same meaning in a game that's 6-3 with just about 5 minutes left. And it's definitely soured a little bit when just a few seconds later off the ensuing faceoff, the Blue Jackets end up with the puck down the corner, then get it up into the slot for a one-timer, and Decord has no chance. That one's in the back of the net, so even after that absolutely spectacular save on Sillinger, the Blue Jackets still score to make it 6-4, and although they do end up going empty net, they aren't going to score again. They really don't get another good scoring chance the rest of this game, even with the empty net. So the Kraken, who do eventually hit that empty net, after Tanev misses it, then Gord misses it. After Gord misses it, Tolvanen does hit it, so Tolvanen gets a goal there, and the Kraken come away with the 7-4 victory. So for the 3rd game in a row, it was not a fantastic start, and even from there, of the 3 games, while it was probably the worst start, it also was the most up and down rest of the game, though I still think the Kraken got the better of the Blue Jackets past those first 10 minutes. In the end, they still allow 36 or 37 shots on goal. Decord allows 4, but there's a couple that he just doesn't have a chance on, and then obviously that wacky wild bounce off of Wemberg and especially Dumoulin, so it's hard to really blame Decord too much, even if his stats don't look quite to that same level that we've seen over these last 10, 11, 12, 13 games. And who knows, maybe part of that is that, again, in the 3rd period, the Kraken were down 2 forwards, so there was a lot of mixing and matching going on those lines, and especially towards the end of the 3rd, I think they can be forgiven for being on their heels a bit, considering, well, guys are double shifting pretty consistently on the forward end. And on top of all of that, from what Hackstall said, it sounds like there's, well, I might not be the only one that's sick when it comes to, I mean, not that I'm a part of the team or anything like that, but a lot of the Kraken players, it sound like they're dealing with some sort of sickness as well. So anyway, all that to say, they were playing through a lot, some of it self-inflicted with bad play of their own to put them behind in 3 different occasions. Some of it just illness, and other parts of it injury, with being down 1 forward for most of the game and 2 forwards for the last 20 minutes. And moving on to the Kraken 3 stars, because again, I'm trying to keep this brief and make sure my voice makes it all the way through it. As always, brought to you by the patrons over on Patreon, who really did need to help me with this one, because as Eddie Olczyk said on the broadcast, he would have liked to hand out 6 stars in this game. I think you could easily find 6 guys, but we were going to limit it to just 3. So if you want to help be a part of that decision-making process, you can help support the channel a little bit more than you already are by watching the video to this point, by going to the link down to Patreon down below and supporting over there as well. And I'm not going to disagree with the patrons on the first 2 stars. Jordan Eberle was the best Kraken player on the ice, hands down. He gets the goal to start things off for them, and I don't know if he ends up picking up an assist. I don't think he picks up an assist later in the game. But even aside from not being the guy with the most points for the Kraken, he definitely had the biggest impact, at least in my opinion anyway. Then the second star, I'm going Jared McCann. He has 2 goals and an assist, a fantastic game for McCann, who honestly did seem to be kind of fighting it a bit since he came back from his injury, but it's good to see him back and really playing like the McCann we know. And also got a lot of playing time, picking up a number of Benir's shifts in the third period, and even I think some of Burakovsky's shifts in the second, although he's on the same line, so maybe that was a reading into that a little bit too much. But either way, McCann was out on the ice a lot and made a big difference. Then with the third star, Cartier was mentioned. Honestly, even in spite of his stats not looking nearly as good as they have in games past, I still think Decord is the reason this game wasn't like a 9-8 type of final like we saw in that LA game last year. He had a couple of fantastic saves. Obviously, a couple of weird bounces end up past him. But in the end, I am going to go with Bjorkstrand on this one. He also has a 3-point night. He has the goal on the power play that gives the Kraken the lead 4-3, and also 2 assists, and with it being his second return to Columbus. Obviously, he was with the Kraken last year, but where he spent a good chunk of his career, I think it's a little bit worth noting that he had that fantastic night as well for the Kraken. So then one more time, it's Eberle, McCann, and Bjorkstrand. Yes, I know, no Decord in the stars, which seems like against the rules based on how the rest of this win streak is going. But at least for now, they keep chugging along and finding ways to win. It's been the theme here over these last certainly 9 games and most of these last 13, that the Kraken find ways to win games. And they need to keep doing that through the back half of the season, as they are now right on that bubble of a playoff spot. Unfortunately, Nashville and Edmonton keep winning, so the Kraken are still just down there below both of those by tiebreaker, but right in that mix. And now LA's starting to fall out of the top of the Pacific, so one of the top 3 spots is no longer out of the question, which is a shock to me, but it is what it is. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I'd love to know your thoughts, who your 3 stars would be, and yeah, obviously I need to get to the end of this one, so if you have made it to this point, and I barely did, thank you very much for joining. If you did like or enjoy the video, there are buttons for that kind of stuff down below, helps support the channel. Until next time, stay safe out there, be good to each other, God bless, and go Kraken! Don't forget, 10 a.m. on Monday.